Hey, did you hear? Santa Claus isn't real. What? Whatever. I believe in Santa. Everybody knows Santa is real. Quit messing with me. That's not cool. It's gotta be true. They're probably messing with me. I want it to be true. It's gotta be true. They're just crazy. I believed it to be true. I believed it to be true. It's true, right? It's true, right? Could it not be true? Could I have been misled? Oh my. Welcome to the adult Santa Claus effect. Thanks for that intro, Heath, and hello again from the heart of Kansas City, the heart of America. Welcome back to the adult Santa Claus effect, where we talk about why we believe what we believe when it's getting challenged and confronting that we may have been misled on a lot of things that we deeply believe on certain topics, things that we want to be true so bad, even though that doesn't make it true. Like how I can want it to not be negative degrees right now here in Kansas City. Or I can want to believe that the pharmaceutical companies care more about our best long-term health than they do about making a profit. Or how I can want to believe that our government does not waste or secretly appropriate millions or billions or even trillions of our taxpayer dollars. But that doesn't make it true, right? A lot of things coming out right now on all those topics, but that's what we're confronting here on this podcast. In the first episode, we talked about the sequence of the adult Santa Claus effect being the same sequence as what you go through as a child. First having confusion, what? Then having denial about what's getting said and just not believing it's true. Obviously, that makes you emotional. You come up with a lot of anger, and then you reach a point where you recognize it is true and you go into a deep depression. Maybe you have a lot of guilt, maybe a lot of embarrassment, but then you acknowledge it and work through it, and then you accept it and you're on the other side. And how I and many others we talked about on the first episode have really woken up these last few years on the news and flow of information and really seeked out other flows of information, and how that big takeaway and bottom line for me at least is anything based in fear or division, or anything that creates dependency or loss of liberty, or anything to do with an invisible enemy, I'm skeptical with it, as it just seems to be counterproductive to my optimal health and the health of the community in which I live, which is a big compass of these podcasts. We also talked about the first episode how this is not a perfect podcast. I was shocked how many times I said and in the first podcast. So I am not a perfect person. This is not a perfect podcast. But as we talked about strength and resiliency in the first one, and being sovereign over your own thoughts and beliefs, and certainly people who have played a role and continue to desire to play a large role in the public eye, helping people like myself and someone who's putting yourself out there on the world stage, it's important to tell a story of the man behind that profile, the person behind that profile. Certainly in this case, it's me, a man behind that profile. So it's with that strength and resiliency and imperfection that I decided to do this podcast and specifically talk today about my story. So this episode is titled A Rural American's Wild Wellness Journey. It is the first and probably only episode that is going to be recorded at night, and I got glasses on, so I feel really smart and mature. These are new blue light glare glasses that I finally got to help with all the looking at computer screens or phone screens. Essentially, they're fake glasses from what all I can tell, but hopefully they help out. It's too early to tell. I just got them yesterday. But let's transition into my story. So, hey, it's important to say that this is the episode I am looking forward to the least. Yes, that's right, the least, because I hate talking about myself. Yeah, I'm comfortable doing it. I'm comfortable stepping into the spotlight, but I don't prefer it. Many of you know I have a dislike for putting time towards social media. I much prefer real interactions where I can invest everything I got in that moment. Plus, it's so much time. Social media just seems like so much time to me. We'll talk about social media more on the 5th episode when discussing relationships and social interactions. I also guaranteed you on the first episode that this was going to be shorter than the last. So given that and how I don't like talking about myself, I'm going to try and go quick here. I am not going to carry things out as far as I normally would. But God has blessed me with an eventful life, and I do want to recognize that in this episode. And wow, was putting it together quite a trip down nostalgia lane. I've realized how I've lived 8 lives already, where I've had to go into a new environment or prove myself to someone or a group of people. And now I'm entering my 9th life, and 9 is my favorite number. Being my favorite number, this one's got to be the best. It's got to be. So starting off in Iowa, where I started off and was born, immediately had an adventure right away. I was born, I guess, pretty purple. And my skin was purple, and I was having trouble breathing. I was whisked away immediately to ICU for a few days. I guess I had some issue with my lungs and breathing. Probably why I had asthma throughout my childhood, but thankfully that faded away after my childhood. And I encourage anyone with asthma to never think it needs to plague you the rest of your life. Try to intelligently, slowly, and courageously conquer it, as perpetual inhalers and steroids are really not healthy for the body. But I was a very adventurous kid. I have a lot of scars to prove that. Had a lot of close calls and literally near-death experiences. Probably the biggest scar and near-death experience was jumping up and down on my bed on the 2nd floor of my house when I was very young, and remembering that I lost balance and fell into the window, completely shattered the window. Thankfully, the screen caught me. Otherwise, I might have fell 2 stories to who knows what. Let's not talk about who knows what. So I have scars. I'm not scared to live life. I can prove that in a lot of ways. But a lot of it was a rural upbringing, a rural Iowa upbringing in a farming community. I didn't live on a farm, but in that environment. Detasseling is a good example. Very hard work occupation for a lot of people. Did a lot of hunting and fishing. I didn't have cable TV until I was 13 years old. So I pretty much had a full childhood without technology, yet I was young enough to embrace technology when it was brought out, and I feel that my generation has a lot of uniqueness and importance to bridging both worlds. Knowing what it's like and how important it is to enjoy life without technology, but also recognizing how technology can benefit our lives and how we can use that effectively. I had a very loving, caring, active, and fun family who took us on a lot of trips, a lot of travels, a lot of fun spirits. They instilled the travel bug inside of me. They were also very athletic. I was lucky to be born into an athletic family, so I had a very typical sports kid upbringing in that every day of the year, save maybe 1 or 2 weeks at the end of July and early August, I was playing a sport, basically and usually baseball, basketball, or football. I don't seek the spotlight. There's an example when I was in 7th grade, the first time that we had tackle football, and the coach asked who wanted to be quarterback. No one raised their hand, and so I said, all right, yeah, I'll do this. And so I stepped right up and became quarterback. So I don't seek that spotlight, but I'm quick to step right in a humble and confident manner if I need to. So playing those leadership roles in sports, which I did, quarterback, point guard in basketball, shortstop in baseball. Yeah, I had a lot of individual and team success and leadership roles as a manager and a lot of professional roles. Jury duty, people selected me to be the leader of our jury. The unit owners in my building wanted me to lead our HOA, all to the Kansas City Wellness Club, playing the leadership role there, founding and operating the business, as well as during the lockdown that we'll talk about later. The best way I've ever thought of myself is that the people who meet me and think that I'm some cocky stereotype in their head, they have that label they throw on me right away, quickly come to realize that I'm a very humble, very personable, and very compassionate person. Yet those who think that I'm a nobody or lacking in certain ways, who quickly try to throw that label on me, soon find out that I have a lot of knowledge to offer and am more present in the moment probably than they are. So I take a lot of pride in that. One big thing holding me back in my leadership and confidence, however, was acne. Man, oh my gosh, did I have bad acne when I was a kid. I feel I was in the top 5% worst acne around. I don't know how to prove that, but from what I can look around and see, I feel I had that deep level. Huge ones that would never come to a head, or others that were very active, where they would go from a red spot to a juicy white head within an hour or two. So I had to constantly keep checking the mirror, and it really impacted a lot on my confidence in a lot of ways. Maybe that's why football was my favorite sport. I had a helmet on, so I felt like I was invisible and could just be me. But anyway, my acne lasted through my mid-20s until after my second round of Accutane, which was a godsend for me. And I want to say that it's very powerful stuff. I've tried everything else. That was the only thing that worked for me. And while generics are still out there, unfortunately, the brand Accutane got pulled from the market due to what I heard was someone committed suicide and they were on that Accutane drug during that time. However, to me, and a lot of doctors will say this, acne causes depression, not necessarily Accutane. I did not notice any emotional or physiological difference when I was on that pill. I mean, it totally changed my life. Totally, and I'm so thankful for that. However, looking back on it, I do believe poor attention towards my nutrition played a very large, major role in my acne. So that's another aspect of health. We try to angle a lot of things towards health here. Nutrition is so important to the health of your skin. So on to the next life. At college, I went to the University of Iowa, partied hard in college. I've always been the one to throw the parties as well as attend the parties. But I threw a lot of parties post-high school at my home in Iowa, college at the places I lived in college, London. When I lived there, I threw a lot of parties. Here in Westport, I threw parties. I threw parties when I was the DJ at a local radio station. I would leave the party, go be a guest DJ at the radio station, and then come back and continue on with the party. So I love throwing parties. I love being the DJ. I love seeing what motivates people, what compels them to action and gets them excited. So yeah, I did party a lot, but still within reason. I graduated with honors with a MIS degree, Management Information Systems, which is the merging of computer science and business. My honors project was the effects of technology on today's society. The effects of technology on today's society. And I start to foresee what really is coming to fruition a lot with how technology impacts people. So I thankfully had a great company called Cerner come up and interview my senior year of college there. And that became my next life, my first real job, adult world, new city, new state. I moved to Kansas City, Missouri. I had money for the first time in my life. Went through a significant training program on how to code and use systems to make Cerner's applications talk to other hospital system applications. It was pretty technical in nature, but it's a very necessary part of digitalizing the healthcare system. My first client travels, this was a travel role. I first went to Detroit. Shout out to Detroit Rock City, great place. But then had a incredible experience, got assigned a project in New York City. And wow, were my eyes really opened. A rural Iowa kid, now essentially living and working in New York City. My eyes could not get enough of it. I really embraced that moment. I felt so cool for about a year living and working in Midtown Manhattan. Oddly enough, this was also when I had a very specific and spontaneous burst of poetic inspiration over 9 days where I wrote about 10 poems, one of which got published in a periodical. And we talked in the first episode about the Beat Generation influence on my life and really their influence on world culture and how important writers are and the poetic word is to a magical life. We talked about the movie The Giver and how cool that movie is about what words can do to bring about color in people's lives. So it's so important to never lose. Poetic word, books, reading, just got to say that. I also went to Naples, Florida, where I was there for 9/11, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But then I was at a Cerner town hall and the CEO, Neil Patterson, who is a legend in the Kansas City landscape and scene, who sadly passed away in 2017, which, by the way, timing, I'll talk about a lot in this episode about timing. On the day he died, I was in Los Angeles and went to a Dodgers game where walking through the stadium, I saw a picture where I did a double take and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is Neil. His face, his smile, his energy, everything, it was him. And as I looked more into it and thought about it, I realized that it was actually Frank Sinatra, but it was certainly Neil speaking to me in that moment. But anyway, at a town hall, he said, hey, raise your hand if you want an overseas opportunity. The United Kingdom just threw $10 billion at moving their healthcare system from paper to the digital world. So I raised my hand. I got an opportunity. They said it was going to be 6 months. Went over to London. Ended up being 4 months we went home for Christmas. And over that time, we realized that Cerner lost all but one bid for those opportunities over there to digitalize their healthcare system, and that there wasn't room for me to go back over, which I just could not believe. I just got a taste of international living. I felt like a big piece of meat had just been thrown at me and then swiped away right when I was getting comfortable. And I had just met a French woman. She was talking French to me, and we were having a great time. So I felt I had to get back over there. And I fought and joined a team at Cerner in Kansas City here that at least was going to go over there for a 2-week trip several months later in May. When I went over, 2 weeks turned into 2 months, which then turned into an offer for a 2-year expat deal to work on their Choose and Book system, which was their first online national booking system for the whole country of England. My thirst for experience and knowledge was really catapulted moving over there. I lived in Notting Hill, was so fortunate. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't taken that opportunity. Living there in central London, working with and meeting all types of people on a daily basis, hearing their perspectives, listening and learning from them. Sure, there was a lot of language barriers, but I came to discover it more as a language of life. You could not understand every single word that you heard, but given their body chemistry, their body expressions, and what the conversation was about, you could understand what they were saying. And I really learned to pick up a lot of accents and languages in that way. Also just saw how kind and beautiful everyone is, no matter where they're from in the world, how we all want the same thing. Didn't matter if they were British, Europeans, Middle Easterners, Muslims, Hindus, Russians, Aussies, whatever. It didn't matter. We are all united in our core life necessities and desire to treat each other kindly. We have way more similarities than we do differences. Living in London, that just made it so easy to travel, especially to mainland Europe, but all over, and just magnified that travel bug inside of me that I said my parents put when I was younger. So I've now been to over 25 countries. Many adventures, many stories. I told myself when I was over there to live with no regrets. I knew that that was a special moment, and I didn't want to come back to the USA whenever I came back saying, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that. Man, I regret not doing that. So I've been to Spain and Germany, Sweden, Amsterdam, all of those places many times. Thailand, Ecuador, Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, many places all over the world. Very fortunate. I'm very blessed. And I just saw how beautiful the world is. Also how mystical the world is. And I just want to say all the, Stonehenge type of structures, they are all over. I'll give you one example. Sacsayhuaman. Look that one up. That's in Peru. And that is like these most massive walls of stones you have ever seen that are all different sizes and all fit together perfectly like a Tetris mastermind. And I'm telling you, there are dozens and dozens of these type of unexplained structures around this world, and we have so much more to learn there. Many more adult Santa Claus effect moments to come in those areas, and I could do a whole podcast on these structures, and in fact there are many podcasts out there on them. So very interesting to see these mystical structures that are all over the world. But hey, I know many of you may want to know some top recommendations, so I'll briefly give you some. Favorite place overall, Amsterdam. Oh my gosh, it's misunderstood. People think it's a spring break type of place. Nah, it is so quiet. It is so healthy. Their infrastructure is full of bikes, way more than vehicles, trams, church bells that you can hear everywhere. It's so laid back. Yet it is so active. You can find anything you want over there. Really at any time. And I feel that's why a lot of the people over there seem so mature, is that they were exposed to that at a younger age. And so they got to realize what it is not. And it took the glorification out of doing it. Prettiest country, Austria. It is a postcard everywhere you look. Most scenic coastline, the Adriatic Sea coastline. I bust down the Croatia side of the Adriatic Sea. Just absolutely incredible. Best sunsets on the planet, Thailand. The islands of Thailand have these sunsets that were like explosions of fire and interactive movie scenes happening. I still cannot fully describe it, but it was phenomenal to watch. Best party on the planet, Oktoberfest in Munich. I've been very fortunate to be there 4 times. The size of the tents, there's a dozen tents there, and it's not even just the beer tents. It is a huge festival grounds of a carnival. So there's all these games and everything. So you can come out of these beer tents, and next thing you know, a guy hands you this pellet gun where you're going to be shooting these bottles down to try to win a stuffed animal. It's an incredible place. But those beer tents, the size of those tents are incredible. The energy going on in those beer tents from 11 a.m. to whenever they close, about 12 hours later, is unmatched. What's so amazing about them is that there's no drama either. Obviously, people are very inebriated, but yet somehow there's this unspoken code of conduct that you bring your A game to Oktoberfest. You do not bring drama. You do not bring fights, attitude. You bring your best. So it's a blast. It is so a blast. If you can make it, definitely go. Most thrilling and adventurous time? Running of the Bulls, the San Fermin Festival, which they actually prefer you call it the San Fermin Festival rather than the Running of the Bulls. It's way more than a running. It's an 8-day party, and I wrote a story about my experience there. This town does not sleep. Pamplona, Spain, about an hour and a half northeast of Madrid, does not sleep for about 8 days every summer. People will just fall asleep wherever they just cannot walk any farther at that time. I saw people wake up on the sidewalk, in parks. I mean, it's just, they wake up and they just start again. I saw an 80-year-old couple come into a bar at 4 a.m., twirling themselves around, dancing. It is unmatched. The San Fermin Festival is incredible. Ernest Hemingway wrote about it in his book, The Sun Also Rises, and there's other books you can read about on bullfighting, like A Dangerous Summer. I missed my flight back because I missed the running the day I was supposed to do it. There's a running every day. It's not just one running. And I got kicked out of the line. I even almost missed the second time I was supposed to run, but I was determined not to do it. I snuck in and did the running, did not get gored. Several people got gored during that time. And I jumped over a group of people like the game Alligator to get away from some bulls and ran all the way into the bull ring where they were still running around. It was phenomenal. I got back to London and I just sat down and just typed it all out. I was just so incredibly amazed from the experience that I had. I do want to say the bullfights surprised me. And the way they surprised me was they were done with so much honor. I mean, an incredible amount of honor. I always have been and always will be against animal cruelty, but there was not one moment during the entire bullfight that I felt animal cruelty happening. And the only way I can describe it is because it was just done with so much tradition and elegance and honor. It was incredible. Quite a spectacle to see. Lastly, hey, what's a place you'd love to have a second home, Heath? Well, that'd be Jamaica. I've been there twice. The pace of life there, Yaman, is just right up my alley. And the concept of respect, sovereignty, conviction is found the most on that island, at least where I saw it the most. I had a lot of people tell me there that, hey, I can see you have a good soul. And I took a lot of pride in that because they're really, really good people there in a lot of different ways. So much respect to the people of Jamaica. I've been blessed to be at the right place at the right time, catching flights through airports, things like that. But also the train ticket back to Madrid. There was a guy speaking English next to me in a different line who I could hear them say, wow, there's no tickets left, sorry, I know you're trying to get back to Madrid, there's no tickets left. And I got up to the line right after him in the other line and used my best broken Spanish to get a ticket, and sure enough, they found a ticket for me. Which goes to show that you should at least know the basics when you go to a foreign country. You will get so much more respect if you at least can say hello. Do you speak English? Learn how to say that in the foreign language. Learn how to say thank you, please. Where is? Learn how to do that because you're going to be looking to go a certain place. Naples, Florida. I was down there, being at the right place at the right time. I was supposed to fly the morning of 9/11. And getting breakfast that morning, I saw what was happening in New York City, and obviously all the flights were canceled, so I did not fly. Ended up had to get a rental car with a work colleague and drove 24 hours back to Kansas City, where I drove 23 out of those 24 hours. because that work colleague said she had a sensitivity to lights and her eyes could not really drive well at night. Oh yeah, well, my eyes have a sensitivity to absolute exhaustion, but I guess that didn't matter, and I don't remember stopping at all. Driving 23 straight hours, what an incredible time. Of course, everybody knows what they were doing during that moment who was alive back then. I was also alive and in London during their big terror attacks on the subways and buses. So talking about, again, being at the right place at the right time. Thankfully, I was not riding subways or buses during that time, but I was there and remember that day and walking home and trying to figure out what that moment meant in our lives. Another one, the 2010, the Great Fire that started outside of Boulder, Colorado, which I think might still be the largest in Colorado history. We were staying within 2 miles of where that fire started. I remember driving away and looking in my rearview mirror and seeing a huge plume of smoke, and I'm like, what the world is that? That doesn't seem normal. Of course, learning later on that that was the fire that had just started that was about to burn out of control for a long time. Another moment, being in the right place at the right time. I landed in San Diego during one of my trips there, and within an hour of getting there, I got interviewed by a local TV station. Why? Because they wanted to find out what people thought about the fact that it was raining. Yes. It was raining in San Diego, and that put a damper on San Diego. Maybe it was rare. I guess it was just simply newsworthy. They had to do a story on it. Maybe they were out of some stories and looking for some stories that day, but got interviewed there. Another right place at the right time. Catching a train back to KC from the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. I was down on the Santa Monica Pier about 45 minutes before my train was supposed to leave when I got the taxi there, and anybody who's driven through Los Angeles knows that it is very hard to drive through with a lot of traffic. And my taxi driver was terrific. He let me navigate him through the city using Google Maps and where we thought there was less traffic, always going this way or that way, sprinting to the platform. Once I arrived, and I'm not joking, it was just starting to move, just barely starting to move, and the door was starting to shut. And I put my foot inside the door after 45 minutes of the most mad taxi ride of all time to stop the train door from shutting as I got on it. And I want to say that driver was encouraging me all the way into the end. He was yelling at me, I remember at the end, "Heath, go! You are going to get on that train! You are going to make it, Heath!" And he was not of my skin type or country of origin, but he cared. Just like so many other people around this world, they care. We are all united. Another moment, being at the right place at the right time, getting featured on the local 10 o'clock news as the top story last 4th of July when I got out for my annual public reading of the Declaration of Independence. Also in the first episode, I talked about walking in when CNN was filming this couch surfing house during Obama's inauguration, and I happened to walk in right when they were filming. Or the time that I was at my storage unit, and I had a storage unit way back in the corner. And never, when I was there, over 20 different times, did I see any cars at all ever come back there. Nobody ever came back there. It was not a place that was active at all. But there was the last piece that I needed to move there that I could not fit, and it was a big painting. And sure enough, this guy just pulls up in his truck right there and just basically says, "Do you need help?" And I'm like, "Are you for real?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can't fit this in." It fit perfectly into the bed of his truck. He said he didn't mind driving us about 5 miles or following us to where my other storage place was at that I needed to put that painting. But, I mean, that does not make sense. That's God working in my life. I'll talk about that here in a moment. But there's just been so many times I've been in the right place at the right time. So many times people have said, "Man, I was just thinking of you," when I reached out to them or when I shake their hand. "We've met before, right?" You know, they'll say that. It's just too many to count. So I don't know what it is, but this has just been an incredible life. Well, over there in London, on to the next life, when pretty soon before I was scheduled to leave, I did meet someone, beautiful, exotic Indian woman. And knowing I was leaving, we're like, hey, let's just spend some time together and just have some fun. But like that famous Rod Stewart song, we fooled around and fell in love. And look, I've loved hard twice. I mean hard. This one, we tried to make it work over 4 years. Her coming over here to the USA, me going back over there to England for another assignment. But I'm not going to go into my relationships here or name names, mostly out of respect to those women, but also because that's not important to my objectives with this podcast or with this episode. However, let me just say this. you can love someone with every fiber of your being. You can be so physically attracted to one another. You can generally share in wanting the same things in life, which is important that you're both looking outward in the same direction. All of these are important. But if you do not have a foundation of trust, a foundation of non-judgmental compassion, and a best friend commitment towards each other, then you will always have leaks in your boat. And we know what happens to leaks in a boat over time. She was Indian and Hindu. I learned a lot about religion during that time, not just the Hindu religion, but many religions, and started really looking inward at my own beliefs. So I decided I needed to be more firm in my beliefs when it came to my upbringing as being a Christian, and I needed to read the Bible. Well, I just felt like there was no way I could sit there and read the Bible. I thought I wouldn't have time for that. But I got it on CD, and I thought, wow, I could probably do this, because there was coming up on a lot of trips. A lot of people were getting married, a lot of my friends around that time. I was making a lot of trips that summer. So I just listened to it for about 3 months straight. And afterwards, oh my gosh, have I seen God's work in my life to be so much more apparent. So not only did I learn a lot more about what God was about, what Jesus was about, what he wasn't about, which we'll talk more about in the religion episode later on, but I just started to see the divine pathway occur in my life so much more frequently. And it made me just believe a lot more and not be afraid. And again, that is the most quoted phrase in the Bible. Do not fear. There's a reason for that. So yeah, my wellness journey began also around this time. I went down to a local gym. I was in London, asked a trainer what he could do to improve the consistency of my posture. I was so frustrated with my posture, not being able to have good posture. And within a few minutes, he just told me very easy steps, very easy reasons why it is what it is, made it easy for me to understand. And he referred me to Paul Chek's book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, a most comprehensive book in the world of health. And from then, I've realized that, hey, if there can be simple, natural, and effective guidance for optimal health, then can't there also be simple, natural, and effective guidance for the repeatable engagement of our everyday task in our lives? It was also around this time, around these years, I battled through many skin cancer issues, always the, quote, good kind of skin cancer, thankfully. But I had to wait for those results of the biopsy always to come back to tell me that. But hey, we'll get more into sunscreen in the next health and wellness episode. I had a lot of skin damage when I was in college. There was a couple summers I was working construction and roofing a lot, shirt off, usually about mid-morning break and the rest of the day, and I became black, and my skin's so fair. I should have never gotten that black. But moving on to the next life, and another love, my second love, I met another beautiful, exotic foreign woman, this time South American. Again, I have loved hard twice, and it has greatly affected me, both good and bad. And I'm not going to get into her name or anything like that out of respect for her, or the objectives of this podcast or episode. We tried to make it work over 5 years, and she had children, very cool, very lovely children, and that made the breakup so much harder. But I moved on, I worked through it, and was determined to come out of it the best person I've ever wanted to be, and not in broken pieces. And I made that conviction as soon as I accepted that that's what I needed to do, that that's what was going to happen with us. This was also the time of my life that Cerner finally said, hey, we're going to do a wellness program for our employees. We're not just a healthcare IT company. We care about keeping people healthy, getting and keeping people healthy. We're going to do and set up this first employee wellness program. I was the project manager for their first wellness program, and then they developed an external business line, so I became the manager there and led all the wellness program implementations through my resignation up in 2019. I also did a lot of weekly podcasts with that team where I faced any public speaking fears that I had, as well as through my church readings that I give in my local Lutheran church, where I read the lessons before the sermon. So that's really helped me. And it's really, all these things have really helped drive me to start wanting to help more people. This was also a time I worked with you can call it really a charity group, a St. Bernard's group at a music festival called Wakarusa for a few years, helping people. I mean, that simply was their goal, was just help people, drive around and help people. And as a lot of you know who've gone to music festivals and the type of state that people are in during these festivals, it can be a challenge to help people, but it also can be an extreme joy because there is total acceptance going on during these festivals, which is also the time frame that it really exploded how critical music meant to my life, how I really wanted to play a lot more musical clips during these podcasts, but copyright laws just prevent me from doing that. But I do put them in the show notes and in my Instagram stories. I remember Roadhouse Blues by The Doors being the first time I ever felt music truly vibrate my soul, and how much music can be an effective and healthy therapy. What is your music, your artist, or your songs that provide therapy to you, center you? And I can tell you that no matter what happens, what state I'm in, I can put on the Grateful Dead and I can be centered almost immediately. As well as live blues music. Nothing beats live blues music, which really kind of spawned almost every genre of music that we have today. Or Motown music. I love Motown. Or reggae. We talked about Jamaica, reggae. I heard it said, and I completely believe, that it is impossible to stay in a bad mood when listening to reggae music. And I have seen that time and time again, not just with myself, but with many others as well. Music is so powerful. I will throw a reference in here about this documentary called Alive Inside. It's about music and memory. This guy who goes into elderly homes where people have dementia and Alzheimer's, and he'll find out songs that meant a lot to them when they were younger or that they really enjoy. He'll put headphones on them and play those songs, and he'll show these people transform. I mean, just absolutely and immediately transform into quote unquote quote normal people, smiling, laughing, talking, and being themselves again. That also comes out a lot in the documentary The Music Never Stopped. It's a tremendous documentary on a true story of a guy who went missing in his late childhood and was found like 15, 20 years later. He ended up having a benign tumor in his head that made him lose all of his memory and couldn't find his way back home and everything. And once he did, what they found was music was what brought him back to himself the most. It allowed his parents and friends to connect with him the most when they played music that he loved before that benign tumor grew and affected his brain and his reality. So I'll put those in the show notes. This is also around the time that I started a real estate investment business, a business concept that I thought was new. I later found out that it's kind of modeled around what a REIT is, a real estate investment trust. Essentially, it was a friends and family deal, so you didn't have to go through a lot of the SEC regulations. I had a great pitch deck. I went out to my friends and family. I got investors and led a very successful real estate investment company for a lot of years up through 2021. I made the investors over 100%, 180% ROI, gave them monthly distribution checks consistently for 8 years before we sold our assets for large gains. Property management, impact analysis, customer service, prioritization, contract work on those properties. And really there was a property I held before I created that investment company as well. It was important for me to learn everything so that when I outsource those, which you need to be able to outsource those if you're going to scale it all, and I enjoyed learning it. I brought with me a lot of that Iowa hard work ethic that I talked about earlier. So on to that next life. After that second love did not work out, and I talked about coming out of it a better person, harness and turn that energy of adversity into energy for resolve and betterment and self-improvement. We'll talk more about the religion in episode 5, like I mentioned, but I do want to take a moment and just mention the Self-Realization Fellowship. This is when that came into my life, the Paramahansa Yogananda. This guy says he was conscious in his mother's womb. He was very, very gifted, definitely a prophet, unquestionably sent from God. And the impact that he had on me, the love of God that he spoke about, how that aligns to meditation, connecting to the divinity inside of yourself, the power that we all have inside of ourselves, which a lot of Christians know is the Holy Spirit, but really it's just God being present in us and in everywhere. So I'll put that in the show notes. He has a great book called The Yoga of Jesus that he ties together. This guy places Jesus at the top. He's from India and believes in a lot of the Indian spirits and gods and prophets as well, but he places Jesus at the top. And so he wrote a book called The Yoga of Jesus, tied in a lot of Jesus's life with his teachings and findings and approach. But if you don't want to read that book, there's also a great documentary you can start with called Awake, The Life of the Yogananda. I'll put that in the show notes. Also during this time, went back over to Oktoberfest, went again over to Sweden, had a legendary jazz fest trip down in New Orleans, went to 3 massive Grateful Dead shows in Chicago, but most notably had several trips to San Diego and Vermont when I was working with wellness teams there at Cerner. So was so lucky. I mean, those are 2 of the greatest places in the country. Did a West Coast swing when the Royals were playing there, San Francisco, LA, and San Diego, including a stay in a West Hollywood pad that my friend didn't even show up for. I was going to stay there and hang out with a friend of mine, but he got caught up and wasn't even to make it back there. But he said, hey, no problem. You can have my pad. It had a pool, my kitchen, just everything. It was just incredible. Also took another trip during this time to London and Amsterdam with my mom and sister, which was really fun to take in those places with those 2, which I believe made it my 17th trip to Amsterdam 17 times. Gosh, that is such a cool number. Such a prime number. Again, I was so fortunate to have all my travels that I've had. Everyone should take the opportunity that they get when they get those opportunities to travel overseas or visit different places. But it was also around this time I started becoming my own living lab. Started to ask myself, hey Heath, if you want to bring about this concept for other people, you got to see if this can be done. Can this be done? I wanted to live locally, organically, at least made in the USA, and I've been doing that ever since 2017. So I've seen how it can be done, how a simplified lifestyle can be done. Which brings me to the Kansas City Wellness Club. So running wellness programs for a decade at Cerner, of course, struck up a lot of conversations with people, and I was continually interested in how, speaking to people, they would say genuinely how much they wanted to get healthier. They wanted to be more naturally healthier, how much they wanted less stress in their lives, how they would always say, I'm good, just so busy right now. Life's busy. How much pride and awareness and desire they would have in timely social media hashtags around supporting local businesses, how people wanted to do all these things, but yet they were not putting these choices into action. I just started thinking about and considering the drivers of why I thought that was and how we could navigate through those barriers. Had very strong visions and spiritual energies, downloads over the course of 5 years to create this localized network that benefits our community. I mean, I remember telling my lawyer, I don't know exactly what a life mission feels like, but I have been going through these last several years with this passion inside of me that feels like it can only be a life mission. So I put together a very high level business plan and presented it to my lawyer after 5 years of working on it. And I am not joking that the very next day after sending it to my lawyer, I randomly went to a party and met someone who told me about the space that had just opened up in the Kansas City Club building that I could bring about a wellness vision and start to establish my presence and my mission on the community. Talk about the universe rising to meet you, right? Talk about manifestation. So, hey, I wanted to be everything to everybody. I mean, really, that's what it was at that point. I wanted to pass on those methods which I had learned to live an optimized yet simple wellness life, provide that perspective, knowledge, and experience on to many others. All plans, not pills, for an earthy, healthy, simplified lifestyle optimized around local economies. Because I care. That's what I cared about. I cared about humanity. I care about the strength and culture of communities, about local farmers, about local businesses. I care about truth, freedom, self-sufficiency, wellness, health. I wanted everyone to go through that. I just lived through it. I wanted everyone to go through that and achieve their best. And we had an incredible, legendary grand opening party. I brought a world-class blues funk band up from Memphis, because I go to Memphis a lot and have befriended some great blues artists down there, including John Williams and his band, the A440. John is one of the best bass players in the world. He's played with pretty much everyone there is in the blues and funk circuit and had the whole place crowded around him at the end. Cameras flashing. He was on the floor playing his guitar with his teeth, which a lot of old blues players just do amazing things. The harmonica player in that band, Yellow P, he has a two-man band called Memphis-Sippy Sounds that hit really high on a lot of the blues charts. It was an amazing band. Everybody there talked about the band and still talks about the band. People left the party and came back and told me, Heath, I just came back because I couldn't believe the music. I just had to hear this music again. We had burn ends from Joe's KC, the best burn ends in the world. We had the best chocolate brownie type of desserts that you've ever had, and anyone I've ever given that to, which people at Cerner remember this, and people in my friend and family circle know this. It was made by Wally's Pastry and Manfred Uhl, who recently sold the business, but him and his parents started it after migrating over from Germany and bringing the best of European chocolate recipes to KC. They even cooked for multiple U.S. presidents. We had a lot of great food. It was an incredible night, though it all kind of took away from the business opening. And that's a lesson learned about opening a business. If you're going to throw a grand opening party, remember that it's just a party. It's not the main message or the main need for your business. So, watch expenses. Soft launches can work well. Maybe do that grand party later on. But man, it was a grand party, and I don't have any regrets for it. It was a lot of fun. So then we got into operating, and unfortunately, because I had a lot of construction delays that had really produced a lot of adversity before opening and caused us to rush to try to open it before the holidays. A lot of the marketing plan wasn't in place. A lot of the staffing wasn't in place. The outreach, how we were going to start a daily system. So it really wasn't until the end of January in 2020 that we fully launched. Anybody who knows the last 5 years knows that we had less than 2 months before the world fully shut down for COVID in mid-March. So we were barely able to put ourselves on the map. I will say at first I was glad to have a moment just to breathe. And I also immediately felt like there was a unique opportunity here. The world has never been shut down like that before. So it's almost like whenever the world opened back up, there was going to be a level playing field in a way, which I really did feel it contributed to a lot of our initial success. But before I go into that time frame was most strange in human history, right? Those initial lockdown weeks and months were scary and frustrating for most everyone. Yet we were never able to be more connected as a global family than we were from the middle of March to the middle of April. It hit everyone in the world, albeit in different ways, but where no one could legitimately play themselves off as a victim. We were all tested. We were all forced to slow down and find out what it means to be confronted with isolation, what means the most to us in life, what we truly need in life, what our core needs are in life when it really comes down to it. We had to look inside ourselves and find out what we were made of. People's true character comes out in adversity. Everyone wanted to know what the future was going to look like. And as we talked about last episode, we need to realize that we are determining that future. It is emerging every day, and each of our daily decisions have cause and effect impact. We are not witnesses to the future. We are active participants. So we'll get more into COVID in the next episode and health and wellness, but in the context of this episode of my story, just want to say I decided to come out of that lockdown cranked up marketing and try to have something to start a business usually doesn't have, a level playing field. Hey, I can come out of this with just as much momentum as anyone else. It was a very unique opportunity. I also wanted to be very generous. It was important for what was going on at that times, but it was important for me as the nature of our business throughout our 4+ years of operation. We carried a greater good community mission a lot. To name a few, I bought meals for our employees during the lockdown and supported other small businesses during that time, businesses that could operate, especially our local bar and restaurant neighbors on our block. Gave free services to nurses and first responders for over a year after the lockdown, and then worked with many more nurses and first responders later on through a nonprofit. We provided wellness deals for teachers of all kinds during those incredibly adverse conditions that they were asked to teach in, or teachers that turned to homeschooling to teach themselves, or regular people who turned to homeschooling to teach their kids themselves. We were an honored resource of the Kansas City Police Department wellness program. We gave a lot of low-cost intro specials to the general public, which many businesses do as a marketing tool, and especially for us, it was important given how unique our concept was, and our conversion rate was often pretty high. But then the winter came and all the face mask mandates, and well, I didn't really do the face mask. I did enough research on that topic and understood why surgeons wear face masks and why they do not, what those face masks do and what those face masks do not. And ultimately, we were a place that went to get away. People went there to get away from fear and relax and improve their health. I used my position and business to support fundamental human and community needs during that time. I always allowed wellness-seeking guests the freedom to breathe without a face mask. So as you can imagine, the health department came a few times and badgered me and finally tried to shut me down. They were the foot soldiers of our mayor and many other mayors in cities all across America during that time. They were humans, though, like the rest of us, and I connected very well with a couple of them who were very nice and open to having at least some conversation with me. Unfortunately, they did not know the science really behind what was going on here, which we'll get into in the next episode, like the science of a face mask and what it doesn't do, or how a PCR test works, or most importantly, asking the health department what they were doing to improve the health of the community and not just tell everyone to be scared and do all these things that in actuality were against optimal health, isolation, fear, everything else. So yeah, they tried to shut me down. And I will, in the show notes, for the first time publicly ever, provide a link to that moment. It was videotaped. I've never shared it before. Look, this was the first winter within the first year of us fully opening. And I had to make a tough decision at that time to bite my tongue and not speak out on that or many other topics I wanted to speak out on. And I decided not to go public with that video, not cause a stir, do what I needed to keep operating, because I cared more about my staff and the guests that we served than I did about any personal platform I wanted to air at that time. So I prioritized them and others over myself. But obviously I was seeing firsthand how we were completely altering almost every aspect of society, all local and world economies, and even our own right to live and breathe freely. An immense amount of orders and emotions shaped where we could go, what we could do, what activities we were allowed to engage in, how we could earn a living, how we could worship. Most of all, there was no discussion or timetable of how we were going to get out of this moment. Because of this, and I became known in some local health freedom groups and held underground meetings, kind of felt like churches and taverns in the American Revolution, and started talking to people about the term adult Santa Claus effect and what we were going through, and finding out that, hey, we are getting misled. I provided a space for people to have community, to have touch, to be able to laugh and talk and share ideas with people. I also organized Kansas City Rebirth, where I brought local business owners together and penned a letter to the mayor and local policy leaders seeking unity and a plan to navigate through this adversity, to be strong and courageous. I'll touch more on this in the next episode, though, in health and wellness. Just want to say, hey, over those first 18 months after the lockdown, really the first 18 months of the Kansas City Wellness Club existence, we went from scratch and developed into a $30,000 a month sales or revenue business by December of 2021. In fact, those first 2 years after the lockdown, we averaged 20% month-over-month revenue increase and had our best month ever in the summer of 2022. And wow, what a beautiful, vibrant, magical place the Kansas City Wellness Club had become. 5 stars on Google, one of the highest, most reviewed places in the city. Our reviews were very emotional. People who did video reviews would cry on the reviews, just showed how much it changed their lives. They would tell me that. They would tell our staff that. And I certainly had the most incredible staff members who breathed life into this novel concept every single day. We had the most amazing team of wellness providers with the most righteous hearts to serve their community. Another area I was really blessed. But people would come through the doors fed up with traditional healthcare system, or going through a big life event, or wanting more convenience in their life, or wanting to go more natural and remove chemicals from their life. They would find our place. Travelers would ask me, Heath, I'm from New York or LA. Like, why do I got to come from the coast to come to a place like this? Can't believe that this is not going on elsewhere. So that felt really good. We were doing something special there. And it was a big operation, creating daily, weekly, monthly, repeatable systems and checklists, business tracking, all while managing 20 plus wellness beauty professionals and operations staff. It was a huge operation. And I had never run my own brick and mortar operation or business before. So right around that time, summer, fall 2022, I was coming up on lease renewal and ended up renewing it. Looking back, of course, I can play many what ifs. I could have left that space and reopened somewhere else in Kansas City. People told me that I should have went to the Kansas side, the Johnson County side, but I still believed in the magic of the rebirth of the historic Kansas City Club. It was going through their own rebirth at that time. I should have probably just took a pause, took a retreat myself and really reflected, did a reset and pulled back on everything that we had accomplished up until that moment and pulled back operational expenses and most importantly, implemented a different staffing model because when I started it as a employment model because I needed to have control over the concept, being it was a unique, novel concept as a singular business and make sure everyone worked together, operating 10 to 12 other specialties, business lines under that. Think about that, 10 to 12 different business streams or really businesses all within one business. It was a lot. It was too much. And remember, it was never about me. I didn't want to be like the master, the kingpin. I didn't want to be the only place. I just wanted to bring goodness to the community. I wanted to help connect people to natural-based providers' information. So I could have played many what ifs, but hey, we had a lot of success. Sustainability looked like it was within reach. My revenue trend was backing me in that belief. However, securing money to cover the losses each month took up so much of my time and mental capacity. Inflation was really high during those years, tough job economy, and therefore budgets got tight. And when budgets get tight, people cut out their health and wellness. It's sad, but it's the truth. People would say, hey, Heath, I love this place. I don't want to stop my membership, but I have to make some cuts in my life. I'm going to be back though. I'm not going to be, you're going to still see me. I just can't keep my membership. And many did come back. But when the revenue stopped increasing, it was getting harder and harder to keep it going each month. And staff would move on and guests would move on, literally move or, due to budget cuts. And we weren't able to keep that revenue increasing while we maintained corresponding efficiency needs. So I had to make the hard decision that many business owners have to make in drastically cutting expenses. The goal at that time simply became to get it profitable, and I greatly cut expenses all throughout 2023 and felt like we were on the right track there. There's a lot of great signs towards getting close to reaching profitability. We got really close, and in fact, in December of 2023, barely achieved that mark. However, it was with a few and very significant asterisks, noticeably gift cards that happened during 2023 that don't happen during the other months of the year. I was working a lot during that time, a lot of different roles, which is not sustainable. Of course, you're going to have to fill that role at some point with someone who you're going to pay. I was not taking any money. I didn't see or feel like I could take any money working for my business that wasn't profitable. It just didn't make sense to me. So unfortunately, while there were many achievements throughout our time frame, a lot of success and momentum during arguably the toughest years ever for a small business, and there were giant monumental challenges always operating in the background. And after many adjustments and optimism, I had to confront that long-term financial sustainability just could not be achieved. My ability and options to personally fund it had been completely exhausted. I gave everything that I had. I could not secure an outside investor or co-owner. I really tried on all those fronts. And the lender I had been working with told me that they were not going to loan me any more funds, which, by the way, I'd miraculously pulled out on 3 or 4 other occasions throughout the life of the business to keep it going. So it wasn't like that was the first time that I was facing financial adversity. So instead of stopping short and deciding to just hang it up and save it for another day, I continued to believe and gave it all that I had to the end, right to the end, even though I recognized it probably was going to end at this time for real. But I wanted to provide wellness services and good vibes to every last person that I could up until the end. And hey, like many other startup businesses, we couldn't make it work long term. A lot of startup businesses fail. Somebody told me that, hey, startup businesses fail, Heath, but owners never do. And that's a good way. If you're an owner out there, make sure you recognize that. We'll talk more about the economy in a later episode, but there's just a lot of business. There were a lot of businesses failing then. There's a lot of businesses failing now. Retailers closed over 6,000 stores in 2024 alone, the highest since the pandemic. It may not be covered a lot in the mainstream news, but fact is a lot of places are closing. And as I say this, the whole podcast series is about optimal personal health and community economic strength. And therefore, I at least want to just take a moment and give a big time respect and shout out to all those brick and mortar businesses that are still out there and what they put in each day to bring you, the customers, that experience that you get when you walk in, those products and services, all of it, going through different seasons and redecorating it and changing with the times and redoing their deals and marketing, staffing, dealing with staffing changes, dealing with customer personality types, different schedules and people's wanting different things all the time. Much respect to those folks. It is not easy, people, to run a brick and mortar business. And everyone who's out there has my utmost respect and should have yours as well if you want a strong local economy. If you want to feel proud about your favorite local restaurant or your favorite local place, if you want your friends and family members to have jobs that provide strength to local economic systems rather than just having a big box store like Walmart or Amazon being the only place you can go to, then you need to go support these stores and these local businesses that bust their tail day in and day out. So I tried to handle the closing as best I could, notifying first my employees, second my members, people who believed in us the most, the guests who really valued the place the most, all of our valued guests and customers. As I believed long ago that a person's true character is how they act when they are faced with adversity. So I didn't want to just be a place that one day there's a sign on the door saying, hey, it's closed. We gave advance notice as much as I could. It was a sad moment. Many people gave a lot to the Wellness Club, and I gave everything I had to the Wellness Club. And it helped. It really did help unite the Wellness and Natural Solution Advocate Network here in Kansas City. It got the message out, made people realize that this type of business is needed. It can be possible. Natural-based solutions and authentic, intentional interaction, all in a super cool place. It was there for our community when our community needed it the most. But I still felt bad, especially for those who had gift cards that were not able to use them before we closed. So for those wondering, I intend to honor any unused gift cards in any future business that I own, my own wellness coaching business that I'm going to talk about here next, or any other community or wellness center that I ever open up. Please reach out and I'd be happy to help work with you to make it right. But the vision remains the same without the massive overhead though. Being more agile, more direct, more personal as a wellness coach. I realize it's not about one place. It's not about a mecca. It never was about one place or being the only place or being the monument or the oasis in the desert. One place. The place isn't the spirit. The spirit is within you. The Wellness Club just brought out that spirit within you. So on to that next life, the 9th life now. I cannot quit on this vision. Since time moves on though, all I could do is take this Phoenix type of moment, reflect on it, learn from it, ultimately move forward stronger. Like I said earlier, harness and turn that energy of adversity into energy for resolve and betterment, self-improvement. There's still a force much stronger and powerful than I that continues to guide and carry me with this unwavering determination to play a leadership role in bringing about simplified pathways to optimal personal health. So as you can imagine, in 2024, I was personally forced to go through a very deep and significant rebirth process, and professionally will go through that process this year in 2025. I had to take a lot of time last year to work through the financial and legal instruments of closing a business after you give everything you have to give to that cause and go down with the ship, really. I have found that when dealing with a major life-changing event, however, it's better to just lean into it, fully absorb it, learn from it, process it, than it is to post about it. So I really hung low, went out of the public light a lot throughout 2024. Did not really seek a lot of excessive amount of external influence. I really listened to my own body. And listening to one's own body has profound impact on making you a better, sharper, more well-rounded person. Which makes complete sense as naturopaths and homeopaths always talk about the body constantly being in a state of healing itself, which we'll talk about in the next episode on health and wellness. So I did decide to invest in a very significant multi-month nutrition program and am now officially a certified nutrition coach. Yeah! It made sense that I get some creds in this area as, of course, many entrepreneurs are credentialed in their industries. Even though I've been in the wellness industry 15 plus years, I wanted some creds be able to tout. And I really enjoyed this nutrition certification. They put just as much emphasis on coaching as they did on deep nutritional technical knowledge or bodily systems, energy balance, foods, nutrient density, things like that. So combined with the coaching program I developed for the Wellness Club, the health coaches I closely worked with alongside designing and implementing wellness programs at Cerner for over a decade, and my own wellness worldwide personal and professional journeys and experiences, and working in several industries as an entrepreneur, as I've talked about, I feel I have a lot to offer in the holistic life coaching space. And this knowledge and angle will play a large part in my upcoming coaching concierge business, helping you with certain health, nutritional, body composition, social, spiritual goals, building meal plans, and connections to local farmers and meal prep businesses, and education and support to take your own self-sufficiency game up a level or multiple levels. For people who have therapists, psychologists, therapists, and there are many, many people I know who have that, and seeking out therapy can be needed. Absolutely. Certain life issues can be very deep and complex that required, very deep therapy and engagement to address. And, absolutely no disrespect to any credentialed therapist. Those people have put in a lot of time and a lot of studies on a very technical and scientific approach. They're very knowledgeable. Their heart's in the right place. I know that. But often from what I've seen is that you don't need to really overcomplicate your life where you're at with whatever you're dealing with. That addressing your holistic life status and really looking at your life in a holistic way will often get you very far towards your goals. And especially if you are looking at keeping a therapist long-term to walk with you down your journey, that a coach can be a very lucrative long-term option in a lot of ways. So definitely look into coaches, even if it's not me, as an option in the future if you're someone who is looking for assistance in dealing with a life situation. Beyond and within this individual coaching, draw it upon my time at Cerner. I plan to be a resource for organizations who want to invest in their staff or customers to get healthier or help run their wellness programs, provide consulting, speaking engagements. So all of that will be presented in my business called Fresh Choice KC. That website will be up soon, definitely before this podcast series is over. I'll, of course, announce it on my channels once it is. Last year also was tough. I was rolling through that nutrition certification program and got sidetracked for at least a month, maybe even a couple months, when my grandpa died. My paternal grandfather, a superhero of mine, a man among men, someone who the world needs a lot more of, who I was very closely connected to. In fact, his name came up in my Akashic record reading. And I understand now how some traditional cultures recommend and take weeks and maybe even, a month to mourn and recover it. For someone significant, it deserves that time. Another thing I had to work through last year was moving. After 15 plus years of living in the same spot, I had to move out, which was a huge undertaking. I have a lot of things that mean a lot to me and a lot of things that I was ready to get rid of. And so I tried to do all of that on my own as much as I could, put a lot of stuff into storage, and all the while, hustling to meet living expenses each month, like so many of you out there have to do. We all have to meet living expenses each month. We all need to find ways to bring in income. So yeah, last year was a tough one for me. It sucks grinding and hustling and making your own money. Many entrepreneurs know that, but I'm just at a point where I have to do what I feel called to do and work only on professions that align with my core values and passion, and improve upon my lessons learned from the Kansas City Wellness Club. Where I can help others live a more healthy life, self-sustainable and therefore resilient life, and a slow living life, a life less busy. I want you to become someone who no longer says you are busy in life. I just care about direct, meaningful, positive impact on people's lives right now. I don't care about other jobs. I could go find other jobs. I don't care about trying to lie to a potential employer saying, yeah, I'm committed to you, a full-time job. I'm dedicated to your cause. If that doesn't align with my core values, I don't want to go through that lie right now. I can't. Good health and having time right now are two of the most valuable things in the world. And I have both of those right now. When you are consistently realizing good health and time, when you are not so busy all the time, you are enjoying a higher quality of life than most people. Over there in London, people would talk about, oh, you Americans, you work too hard, you live to work. And they would say, not us. Over here, we work to live. And that always stuck with me. We should work only to live. And when one consciously only gives up time for those things that matter towards your personal and professional goals, you'll find how much easier it is and how it makes your life more joyful and beneficial in all the ways. Never in my life have I had less than I do right now. Yet never have I been happier, healthier, and more at peace than I am right now. Also, never have I realized how important family is to me and has become for me. Look, I can no longer be everything to everybody. I can no longer try to impress everybody. I can just be who I am, which I feel has been a lot to a lot of folks, that I have made an impact on people's lives. And so I want to bring that through my coaching. It's going to be focused on those 4 core life needs that I talk about a lot: health, food, home, and clothing. We'll get more into it in the next health and wellness episode, but it comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've probably heard about that. We all have essential needs: shelter, food, and clothing. And then less essential needs like a gold watch or jewelry or a luxury car. And, the more that you can prioritize your essential needs over your less essential needs, otherwise known as wants, then, you can make better decisions and live a better life. So those 4 core needs: health, food, home, clothing. Overall health will be presented through my holistic coaching program, refined from all those years in the wellness industry, running wellness programs for health systems, health plans, employers who want to get their employees healthier, through founding and operating the Kansas City Wellness Club, and through my own wellness journey. 7 holistic pillars: mindful, nutritional, physical, social, spiritual, financial, environmental, including basic skin health recommendations, hair health, connections and naturally made products. A lot of this is not rocket science, folks. It can be done in a very simplified way, a very holistic way, bringing out your personal best with the least amount of change or extra expense. Because I know a lot of you are resistant to change. I'm even resistant to change. We all don't want to spend more. And in fact, I want to find ways that you can save money. Food really just comes down to helping connect you to healthy, humanely grown, local food aligned with your body composition goals and budget that you have to work with. We are very resource intensive here in the Kansas City area. We have many farmers and farms and people who care about feeding their community. And all we got to do is connect them to you and then connect you to them. It's a match made in heaven. Take all those foods and meals that you eat, 80% of your life, your 5, 10, 15 meals that you kind of have in rotation, whatever it is that you basically rotate through for your sustenance needs. I will help you set up a local system and process for you to get that part of your life into autopilot, removing complexity, making it simple. Just like there's so many ways to exercise out there. There's all these cool ways and new ones pop up all the time. People are like, oh, you doing this, you doing that? And a lot of folks are like, no, I'm not. I'm fine doing the ones I want. A lot of folks find their exercise routines, they stick with it, and that's enough for them. Just like me, I'm the same way. They don't need the new cool exercise routine. Same thing here. We're just going to help you automate your repeatable engagement with your food needs to optimize your health and save you time. On the home front, there'll be guidance for approaching all your common needs around the house, like repeatable cleaning and maintenance tasks inside the home or in the yard. All natural, non-toxic, body, planet-friendly options and self-sufficient options. Ideally, easy and low-cost options as well. Think about weed killer options for the yard rather than Roundup. And then clothing as well, and that will come later. Obviously, it's a different concept from food, but it shares the same principles. And the at-home and online fashion industry markets have been emerging and growing, just like the at-home grocery delivery and local farmer markets and farm-to-table restaurants have been growing recently. So again, all plans, not pills, for earthy, healthy, local economy-focused, simplified lifestyles, which ideally down the road we develop. This is what I hope can happen concurrently into a cooperative, a for-profit cooperative that consists of holistic membership plans similar to what the Wellness Club had, only now it's connections all across the KC metro area to natural-based healers, professionals, where everyone in the co-op benefits. Consumers who are receiving all of that, workers like wellness service providers, doctors, chefs, storage and delivery workers, producers, farmers, food systems, clothing manufacturers, makers of non-toxic home solutions and products, where everybody benefits. Again, this vision was never about one place. It was always about connecting us and the power that we have through connection. My goal is simple: to help make your life simpler, easier, and free up more time for you. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, but it certainly can mean effective. It's all about efficiency and freedom to live a less burdened and more enlightened life. This is what Bob Marley meant when he spoke of how you should emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our own minds. That was in Redemption Song. So let's liberate and unite through the adult Santa Claus effect. So, as we close here on this episode where I talked about all the chapters of my story, remember that each chapter in your own story is just that, a chapter. All too often, we think, and I certainly thought, that, well, during this chapter, this is it. This is what the rest of my life is going to look like. Whatever I'm doing right now, this is what I'm stuck with. And time again, we get proven that wrong. That's not the case, right? We move on to a new chapter. There's always another chapter, another evolution in our pursuit of optimal health, wisdom, fun, and enjoyment of life. So live your life with no regrets. Capitalize on opportunities when they come your way. Trust your intuition and say yes to that proposed adventure. But don't be in a rush to get through life. Don't rush. Don't be so busy. Enjoy every moment and try to recognize the significance of the moment while it's happening in order to get the most out of it. So, woo! Well, anyway, I know I'm coming in under the first episode duration. Like promised, delivered. But that's who I am. That's what the Wellness Club was founded on and where it was always headed towards. That's the direction I'm continuing to go. Certainly, if any of you know of any professionals, businesses of all types who might be interested to play a role in this community vision, please send them along. I'm sorry if there wasn't a lot of adult Santa Claus effect moments in this episode, given it was just, my story. But wait until the next one on health and wellness, which may have the most adult Santa Claus effect moments of any of my episodes. So please tune in to the next episode on health and wellness, something very near and dear to my heart and really the focus of my life over the last 15 plus years. You'll especially want to listen to it from my super secret top 10 easiest pathways to best health. These are the top 10 things with the theme of the easiest and least amount of effort and least costly activities that you can do to make the most impact on your life. So thank you. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe. Follow me at heath.zone and my LinkedIn and Instagram channels linked there. Thank you for listening. Remember, you are most welcomed, most accepted, and most valued wherever you're at going through the adult Santa Claus effect.